we are going to get into a very serious subject. This is America as we know it now, and I am going to ask a young man up here, but what we're going to talk about is something that some of you have probably heard of and some of you possibly have not. How many of you have heard the term label lynching? Sort of crazy, isn't it? And yet, when you look at a website such as the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, or listen to your news commentators, they hang labels on people. So constitutionalists, conservatives, Trumpsters, deplorables, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, all those, if I started saying something about you, that you were a white supremacist, and could say because so-and-so and such happened, and other people pick it up, and then if the news media picks it up, you're dead meat. It's pretty darn sad. And people's lives are destroyed with these labels that are being hung on them because we don't take time to really figure out, is it true or is it not true? What is the purpose behind labeling a person a certain way or not? So I have a gentleman here this evening who has been label lynched. And we're going to watch a video, and then he's going to come up and talk to you for a couple minutes.
How's it going, Washington? My name is James Allsup. I am the Washington College Republican Federation Chair, and as well as a student of Washington State University, so go Cougs. So one of the things you'll hear tonight is that this is not just an election, it is a movement. And we see that even on our liberal college campuses, I can assure you, believe me. But we see it worldwide, too. In June, we saw it in the United Kingdom, where the people of the United Kingdom came together, the decent people came together, and they voted to leave the corrupt, globalist European Union. And this November, we have a chance to have our own Brexit moment right here in the United States. We have a chance to get a president who will put America first again, who will build the wall and is going to make America great again. So if we want to take our country back from the globalists and the corrupt politicians and put it in the hands of someone who actually knows what they're doing, there's only one choice, America. Vote for Donald J. Trump this November. Thank you.
Let me get my little slide here. Okay, there we go. So James is with us this evening, and he's been labeled. He's going to tell you about it. And did you just hear anybody that you disagree with in the video? Absolutely not. And so come on up here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. And let me see, I have this on right. There you go.
I can project if there's no microphone. Okay. Well, that was 2 years ago. It's funny, I prepared that speech in about 30 minutes when I got to the Trump rally. I was asked, because I was the Washington State College Republicans Federation chair at the time. And I show up at the rally, and the person leading it asked me, he says, "Hey, you're the chair of the Federation, right?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, you support Trump, right?" I said, "Yeah, that's why I'm here." He said, "Okay, cool. How would you feel about introducing the next president of the United States?" So in about 30 minutes, I threw together a speech. These remarks I prepared in the roadworks on I-95. If you guys have driven that lately, it's stop and go the whole way. So off the seat of my pants here a little bit. So as Cecily mentioned, and I want to say thank you for Northwest Grassroots and Cecily and everyone involved for having me here. I was the chair of the Washington State College Republicans Federation. I was the president of the WSU College Republicans. I was actually on the platform committee of the College Republican National Committee, and I was the national field director for Students for Trump. And with Students for Trump in the 2016 election, we had chapters on hundreds of college campuses, thousands of young people getting out there and supporting who became the next president of the United States. But One thing we saw throughout the 2016 election, I saw this personally after the events that took place last summer. I was at the events in Charlottesville, which some you guys may know about, which was totally misrepresented in the media. It was not anything like they said it was. But we saw this in the 2016 election too with President Trump, where instead of talking about the ideas, instead of asking, why do you want to build the wall? Why do you care about strict immigration policy? Why do you care about these things? They didn't do that. It was racist, sexist, bigot, xenophobe, all the transphobe, all the labels under the sun. It's kind of funny when they had the labels, the constitutionalist, Ron Pauler, all those things up there. I was looking at those boxes like, wow, how many of these do I check? They don't want to talk about the ideas because they know if they get into the argument, if they get into the debate, they'll lose. If they have to make the case for why they're right, they'll lose every time. The left, the media, which are, of course, the same thing. We know that here with the Inlander and Spokesman Review. We know the left and the media are often the same thing. If they have to debate the issues, they'll lose, which is why they rely so heavily on labels. They need to scare you. They need to keep you afraid of expressing what you think, which is why instead of saying, hey, we should leave the southern border open, right? We should allow every illegal alien that wants to come here. They'll never say that. They'll just say, oh, you're a racist if you want to enforce the border. So that's sort of how they operate, and we know that's how they operate. It's very dishonest. And unfortunately, many in the swamp Republicans, you all know the expression rhino, right? Republican in name only. I got very well acquainted with that phase back in 2012 when I was 16 years old. First presidential campaign I ever cared about was Ron Paul's campaign. And so I got very well acquainted with the term rhino. Unfortunately, couldn't vote, but I nudged my dad, pressured my dad to vote for Ron Paul, so it worked. But what the rhino response has been for so long is when they hear a scary word in the Daily Beast. If you guys don't know what the Daily Beast is, it's an extremely far left, anti-Trump, anti-conservative outlet. They oppose family values. They oppose everything that Republicans should stand for. They see a mean word in the Daily Beast, and their instinct is to run away from it. Their instinct is they see that criticism and they think, wow, I'm going to be in trouble if I don't respond to this criticism. And they instantly give in to the moral frame that the left is setting up. Right? Because when the left can get you and when the media can get you on the defensive, that's time you're not talking about your ideas. When you're defending yourself and saying, oh, I'm not any of these scary labels, I'm not this, I'm not that, that's time they're taking away for you. They're living rent-free in your head, as the expression goes. And you are doing the work they want you to do. They're taking you off your game. That's what they did. That's what they've done to Republicans for a long time. But what made Trump different, and what's making the next generation, and I still work with college kids all the time, I work with young people all the time, getting people into politics. What we're seeing, what Trump really kind of blew the doors open on, is people aren't doing that anymore. People on the right, Republicans, conservatives, of all sorts, are not afraid of the media anymore. They're not afraid of the left anymore. Instead of, when the left confronts them and says, hey, you're this label, you're that label, they just, say, yeah, whatever. Like Corey Lewandowski, did you see this a few weeks ago where he was on TV and the person said, oh, what about these poor illegal alien children? He says, womp, womp. They just totally reject the moral frame the left tries to set up. And that's what's made the Trump Republicans different, these Trump Republicans who are coming into the party. And if you think about the GOP establishment, right, the swamp creatures, people like Paul Ryan, these globalists who are in the GOP, what have they even conserved over the last 20 years? What have they conserved? We have, I'm 22 years old, I just graduated college. People who went into college with me are making less than they were expected to make just 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, wages are dropping due to a lot of things, due to outsourcing, due to immigration, due to a whole milieu of factors. Illegals are pouring across our border, and on social issues you have transgenders teaching your kids, you have the gay agenda everywhere, you have all of this social degradation going on. So what if the swamp conservatives really conserved? Nothing. And that's why they're afraid of people like Trump. That's why they're afraid of these sort of more confrontational politics, because it will expose them as being an absolute waste of time, the swamp Republicans, the rhinos. Now, that's what's exciting, I think, about President Trump, because he is someone who has a winning mindset. Right? That's the difference. Instead of a lot of these people who are sort of, milquetoast and sort of afraid all the time, Trump is a winner, and he wants to go out there and win on policy, on issues, and he has been doing a pretty great job of that so far. Trump wins unapologetically, too. That's the thing. He doesn't apologize for asking what he wants. He doesn't apologize for taking his own side. And he's inspiring a new generation of Republicans, conservatives, people on the right to do the same. Because when you look at the people who are coming in to the right, generally, you know, whatever the label is, the conservative label, I don't always use it, but it's applicable. People who are coming into the right, the young people, they're in that, they have that same mindset. They have the winning mindset. They want to win. They want to succeed. They don't want to be cowed and intimidated by the left. So that's very encouraging. That's something that Trump is doing a very good job at. And that is why I think the GOP establishment, we could say, the rhinos, the people who have been in power for the longest time and have not conserved a single thing, that's why they oppose Trump so much. And we can look, you know, for sort of parallels to this. We can look at the 2016 election and think about when all these so-called conservative pundits would go on TV and say, well, Trump is just horrible, right? Trump is just, he's going to destroy our party. Like Ana Navarro, do you guys know who that is? The Republican strategist. Would say, oh, Trump's horrible, he's racist and all this. They're afraid of their brand of conservatism, which has failed completely, being exposed as inadequate. Well, no, it's this sort of old guard. So that's the lesson that I think we can all learn from Trump. That's the lesson I think that conservatives, the right, needs to learn from Trump, is to have a winning mindset. And when a leftist or the media comes and approaches you and says, oh, how can you do this? How can you do that? Just don't give in. Just don't let them set the narrative. Because as soon as they set the narrative, you're derailed from making your point. You're derailed from succeeding in what you want to succeed. Double down when you can. Double down and don't be afraid to be successful. And if you're in the right, don't feel like you have to apologize. Don't feel like you have to present things with sort of it's almost weaselly language, right? Don't be apologetic for success and for standing up for your values. That's what's important. If we're going to be conservatives, if we're going to conserve anything, we should not be afraid to stand up for our values. That means family values, traditional values. We need to stand up for these things and not apologize if the left says, oh, you're not being tolerant, right? Oh, you're not being tolerant enough. There are some things we shouldn't be tolerant of. There are some things that are just, frankly, so revolting, and it's talking socially here, that we should not be tolerant of them. And if we're going to conserve anything, we should not be afraid to say that. So that's pretty much what I had. Thank you again, Northwest Grassroots, for having me. And when you see things in the media that are being presented by the left, right, when the left uses labels, you know, white nationalist or things like this, remember, they're trying to tell their story. That's their side of the story. And the left controls the media, unfortunately, to a large degree. And so they're going to present their narrative. And so always think critically when you hear people being attacked and criticized in the media. If people hadn't thought critically during 2016, Trump would have been out of the race, right? When the media says, oh, he's a racist, sexist bigot, people would have just said, oh, that's it, and not voted for him. So always think critically. Don't trust the media because they are going to lie to you. So that's pretty much all I had. Thank you, guys. If you have any quick questions, I know we're trying to wrap it up here. Thank you all.
Any questions, guys?
I want to say before somebody grabs another microphone that I had a chance to sit down with Jason and to James and talk about this. And
what's his name?
And I just get the J's mixed up. You know, when you're a John, everybody's got one, right? So that was a little over the head, wasn't it? Okay. But action is what the Republican Party needs so strongly. How would you like to have a couple hundred people like James here in Spokane? And so that's literally the focus that we talked about. We're going to make things happen. So Tea Party's back on, rallies back on. Let's go make some stuff really happen, and this is the start of it.
Absolutely.
If anybody wants some questions, go ahead.
Right over there.
I really appreciated your comments. I have this perception that all of the secular colleges and universities are pretty much controlled by atheistic, liberal professors. How bad is it really? I've quit giving to my college for that very reason. I'm not going to support them. And the tenured professors that are able to say there's no God, you know, you need to vote to the left, you need to do all this stuff. Yeah. Instead of freedom of choice. How bad is it?
Well, I would just use my experience at Washington State University as an example. Even at this ag college, right, out in Pullman, Washington, which you would think should be a conservative stronghold, if any university will be a conservative stronghold. We had protests this year by some of the Black Lives Matter groups on campus demanding that they stop hiring white faculty, they fire, in fact, white faculty, hire more diversity. And the university caved and said, yes, we'll make a timetable to see that your demands are met. So it is unfortunate, and that's at WSU. Can you only imagine what's happening at UW or some of these more coastal colleges? So it is pretty unfortunate. I think if you know that your college that you graduated from is doing a good job, continue supporting them. But unfortunately, what I've heard and seen across the country is most of them are in pretty rough shape.
Anyone else? In the back.
Yes, we built a 20-foot by 8-foot wall in October 2016. We had about 1,000 people come out and protest against us versus about 20 college Republicans. It was a great time. Thank you. Thank you.
We were at the GOP board, and one of Kathy McMorris Rogers' people came and said there was a Twitter storm about you, and you were a neo-Nazi, and da-da-da-da, and they demanded that we issue an immediate Twitter thing that we're not associated with you. Can you kind of give us an idea what that was all about?
That's called label lynching.
Well, that's I think ties it right back to the main topic, right? It's very illuminating to me that none of these people who said we need to issue statements and say these horrible things, none of them reached out to have a conversation. And that's the funny thing is I know several people from Kathy's office. I know people, all over the county, and no one reached out to ask, hey, is this true? Right? And the more the Republicans and conservatives allow the media applying pressure to divide people on the right, the more that will happen. The more times they can get that statement put out, the more division they'll sow. It's basic divide and conquer tactics. And it's unfortunately worked very well for the media and the left because of that mindset that I quickly outlined there. As soon as we can adopt a mindset that says we're not going to let the left tell us what to do, we're not going to let the left set our morality. If there are issues, and I probably don't agree politically on every topic with everybody in this room. In fact, I know I don't, but that's fine. If there are issues, we'll talk about them within the right and resolve it and sort out our differences. I think that is a much better way to go than feeling like we have to issue these big public statements. And because it's like piranhas in blood, right? When there's blood in the water, the sharks will circle and seek to, sharks it is, and seek to, it's a feeding frenzy. And the more they get us to do that, the more we lose.
You're right there. Anybody else? Okay, well, I really appreciate you. Thank you.